Today we have another subscriber question. Let's go ahead and dive in. Mr. Furious. Don't make him mad. He writes, on Google, one good Performance Max campaign can be enough for upper funnel and mid funnel with lots of media. The answer is yes and no. More yes, though. You are right. Absolutely. I made some notes here. PMAX is acquisition. There's no doubt about that. That's because it uses all these different pieces of the Google Ads tentacles. It uses YouTube, display, Gmail campaigns for email. It also uses shopping, even search. And because of this, it's able to tap into different audiences. It could be in market audiences. These are people who are in market to buy certain things, whether it be a house or a car, or even simple things like going to a movie. It's able to identify those signals and target people via PMAX. The other one is affinity audiences, and these are more traditional audiences like sports aficionados or beauty mavens or people who are into cars, all sorts of different people that you can kind of slice and dice and include that within your PMAX. It also has demo, which is demo is more age and gender. Now, when you set this up, you'll actually be able to include some remarketing elements as well. And this is your people who have done page views, people who have added cart abandonment, people who have purchased and remarketing them with different products. Now, at first, when a PMAX starts, it will hone in on those initial audiences. It will actually hone in on the remarketing audiences, but that's because it's starting off in learning, but it'll also include remarketing throughout its lifespan because it takes multiple visits and multiple hits to get people to convert. You know, the average hit to do some, depending on how much the AOV is, the average order value can be, anywhere from 5 to 30 times. So that's what PMAX does. That being said, it will eventually get out of that mode or not rely on it so much and do a lot more acquisition to bring people into the funnel. That's where YouTube and display and all these other elements come into play. I actually have a graph for it right here where I talk about this because here label this out. So at the top you have awareness, and that's where it uses more YouTube. Mid funnel is more display, non-brand search. And then close to the bottom, you have people who are more intimate, right? You have the more Gmail marketing, which is more one-to-one. This is usually the cart abandonment is usually with the Gmail marketing because it identifies people, the things that you saw, and will be like, hey, you did a cart abandonment. Here is some stuff that you looked at. I know you're probably interested. Take a look. And then you have the shopping element as well. Notice here I have brand search, right? Why do I have brand search and why am I calling it retargeting? I'm doing that because most people convert on brand. That's just the way it is. I didn't write the rules, but that's just, think about your logic, right? When you go shopping, you get targeted with an ad, you go there, you remember, oh, okay, it's so-and-so shop, Yousaf's store. And then you go there multiple times because you get hit with either these different PMAX campaigns or with a demand gen campaign or non-brand campaign. You don't really convert until you're ready to come back and say, I'm ready to go to Yousaf's store and look at his Black Friday promo and take advantage of it and then buy, right? So that's where brand search comes into play. Brand search also comes into play in looking at your attribution and your path to conversion. So if you look in the Google Ads portion of the buy and you look under measurement, it'll actually, you can identify where most conversions happen. Most conversions will definitely happen on this brand search. There's no doubt about it. That's just where people convert. Most, not all, most. From there, you're able to identify, because most conversions happen there, where was the first click versus the last click or the purchase? And that's the beauty of it. And you'll be able to identify it was PMAX or it was a different awareness campaign. So you had a dedicated YouTube campaign. Same goes for GA4. That's the beauty of GA4. It's a little bit more complicated window, but you're able to identify that last click where most people converted, which was brand, and then identify and extrapolate out, okay, where did they come in at? That's the key, because you also want to see where they came in at to reinforce those particular campaigns, because those are the ones that are getting people into the funnel, and they're the last end result is the purchase. See where I'm going with this? So it's very important to do brand search. A lot of people discount it because if you don't do it, say you just have a client that's just, oh, I don't need to pay for brand. Why would I pay for brand? People convert off SEO, but you see how you lose that knowledge. You actually lose that loop. You lose the ecosystem and the study there to say, okay, where do they come in at? See, because most people convert on brand. That's just where you need that. And it's also cheap. It's also very cheap to do brand campaigns. You know, if you're pouring in a whole bunch of money here, you know, it's, you know, there must be something up. You must be Target or Walmart or something, because, you know, brand terms are usually pretty cheap. They're usually cheaper to conquest. You know, you do set them up as conversions. Also, you got to look at your impression share. You want your impression share for your brand terms to be at least 80%, at the very least. That way you're not conquested. And that's a whole other issue. So going back here, let's talk about this. Okay. So we talked about brand. The other one is make sure you use UTMs, and it goes back to GA4. So GA4, you know, lives off UTMs. You want to be able to identify the coding on the URL, where they came in at. Also, I would advise using UTMs for creative as well, not just placement. So not just PMAX, but also the actual creative. I do that with a few clients now, and it's actually very telling. It's actually very informative. Fuel. So when you use PMAX, if you don't have YouTube assets, guess what it's going to do? It's going to auto create YouTube assets. You don't want that. You want to use dedicated, nice YouTube creative for display. You don't want to use stock images. You want to use dedicated display images that your ad agency created. The reason why is because I always know when somebody was too cheap to do that, because I get this, you know, music in the background and almost like this, like different images appearing in this like slideshow. It looks silly, man. We've all seen it. You just don't realize it. But yeah, I've even seen really tier 1 advertisers use that. And I'm like, man, I don't know who's doing your media, but that is a big no-no. It should be dedicated YouTube creative. You want it to be pretty. You want it to be, you know, showcasing your stuff. You don't want some auto-generated thing or stock images. That's just nonsense. That's what converts better. We talked about in-market and affinity audiences, and now let's talk about setup. So setup depends on the budget. And what do I mean by setup? You know, you said one good PMAX campaign. The answer is yes. And I have a lot of campaigns where I just use one dedicated PMAX. However, eventually you're going to want to scale depending on your average AOV, depending where you're at in your business, in terms of your business life cycle. So yes, the answer is using one PMAX and one search campaign. Now, when you first set up that PMAX, it's going to be a max conversion buy to warm up. Now, max conversions are usually the cheapest thing that sells. That's why it's called max conversions, because the cheapest stuff sells the quickest. So it's going to, as a algorithm, it's going to optimize to the lowest priced AOV. What you want to do is that once it gets 30 conversions in 30 days and it's learned, either switch it to a max conversion buy, a max conversion value buy, or a TROAS campaign. Because the beauty of a TROAS campaign is it allows it to get out of that cheap stuff. Eventually it will, as a TROAS, because it's fully learned on the cheap stuff, it will want to push up into the mid-price items, into the higher priced items, because it already knows how to sell the cheap stuff, right? So and you actually do that. This sounds so crazy. You actually do it, but with a low TROAS. So if your TROAS is between 1 and 2.5, that's a perfect place to keep it, because it will scale up automatically, because it knows that, hey, I know at this time and day, this is when the cheap stuff and it sells the best. But once those auctions take place, and once there's like almost like a shark frenzy, once it starts selling a lot, it'll open up to the more higher priced audiences or the higher spending audiences, and sell those higher priced products to those audiences. Again, once the mid-level stuff sold, it'll open up the larger gate, which is the top gate, which is the premium stuff. And it only does this, my friends, with TROAS. It does it with conversion value as well, but TROAS is the key. I think that's a great place to be. And it does sound illogical. Like, why are you saying to do a low TROAS? Would I want it to be a 10? No, then it won't spend at all. You actually want it to be low, and then algorithmically, open up to each gate. I actually have a YouTube video on that for anybody who has any questions. Just chime in on the comments or even look for it. It's I'll put it in the comments as well, just as a link. But going back to grouping, as you scale as a business, eventually you're going to want to do groupings. And groupings is when you have a PMAX, right? So right now in our discussion, we're talking about one PMAX campaign and one brand search campaign. Eventually you're going to want to do multiple PMAXs because say you had a furniture store. This is my best analogy. Say you have a furniture store and you did this, right? You have this amazing PMAX. Well, eventually you want to scale this, right? You just don't want to keep pouring money into this. So what you do is group it. You actually separate it into sofas, right? So you have a dedicated sofa PMAX campaign. Then you have a dining set campaign for PMAX. So you have all these different groupings on all your different products, maybe like 3 or 4, between 3 and 5 or so. So they're all working on at once to sell all your items, because to sell a chair, right, is a lot different than selling a bedroom set. So that's the beauty in this. So it becomes fully learned to each product. So it knows how to sell sofas. That's the sofa campaign. It knows how to sell bedroom sets. That's the bedroom campaign. And it's fully learned by campaign. It's like almost like when you look at it from that point of view, it's like an automatic, it's like a secret salesman at that point because it's fully learned. Then on top of that, you include just the products for the shopping campaigns, and you have dedicated creative for each one of those campaigns. So you have a dedicated YouTube creative, dedicated display creative for those PMAXs. So it's fully learned and has dedicated creative, and it's scaling. Now that's the goal. That's the vision. Do you start like that right off the gate? Well, it depends how much money you have. I'd say start with one PMAX, then eventually separate out into the next best product that does the best, and then keep going. That's how I would do it. So that's really it, my friends. Such a great discussion. Look forward to more questions. If you want to, I actually have my WhatsApp group that anybody's free to join. It has 117 people in there. I can't believe it. We also have an audio podcast that I update probably about 3 times a week. And that's just my journey into, as I expand my agency. It's been a great year this year and looking to do more stuff. And then, of course, this channel. So I really appreciate you guys being part of my journey and listening in. Thank you so much.